Now, next, we are going to hear from Tom Kay, who doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway. Tom founded Finisterre in 2003 with the help of a Prince's Trust loan, which is a big clue as to what's happening today. Founded on the founding pillars of a commitment to product, environment and people, Finisterre is a multi-award-winning brand and now employs 60 people with 7 stores nationally. Highlights include the Beaumont programme, that's Leslie's sheep, just in case you don't know, very well worth a look. And Finisterre also employs the world's only full-time wetsuit recycler. I would like to say that this is a brand that's so rare in the fashion industry, as I've already said. They have never dropped the ball. They have never deviated from their founding principles, and I think that is so incredible in this day and age. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Kay.
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom. I'm the founder of Finisterre. Some of you might not recognise me as wearing a suit today, but it is me. And I really want to welcome everyone to Wheel Kitty. Such a great place, and it's been our home for a while. It's been Surfers Against Sewage home for longer, and it's changed a lot in the years, but I think it's really great to see the place that is becoming forward-thinking, exciting businesses, and it's great to see so many of you here today. And I think the last speaker was just talking about the power of collaboration. I think that's an absolutely fundamental theme in the fight against plastics. Journalists, academics, businesses, conservationists, activists, everyone coming together and never underestimating the power of collaboration. So what I thought to do today is just give you a quick sort of run through Finisterre's history, how we end up here, and how we're ending up sort of in this world that we're really kind of fighting for and trying to affect change for. So this is, I'm Tom, Finisterre's 15 years old. This is my favourite photo of a rough sea I've ever found. It's in the Dover Straits. I think it's gale force or storm force 11 or 12. And if we look to how sort of Finisterre started, it really began with my mum and dad bringing me up with a love of the sea. They sort of talked to each other and they sort of discussed how they'd like to bring my sister and I up. And they said that love of the sea is something they want to instill in myself and my sister. And I was very fortunate that was kind of how I was brought up. It was in boats, it was windsurfing. And then when I hit about sort of 15, 16, so it became surfing. It became, I lived it, breathed it, ate it, slept it, everything. And my formative years, I suppose. And I think like a lot of people about that time, you get into, team sports or music or art or photography, whatever it might be. Surfing it was for me. And it was a sort of surfing that I was doing over here. It's a sort of surfing where you're not walking out the back door every day and it's perfect weather, it's perfect waves. There's a real commitment to the sort of surfing that I was doing over here, but a real romance to it as well. And so I ended up having quite a serious relationship with this guy. I sound old, I suppose I'm getting a bit old now, but it was before the internet, before Magic Seaweed, before all those algorithms that would tell you which beach to go to at what time and what day and that sort of thing. And so this was my main source of information for where and when to go surfing. Basically, Michael Fish, who it was, leaned forward and you'd see the storms behind his back in the Atlantic. And from there, that would be, when the surf was going to get good. So for me, that was a big part of it. Sadly, the internet ended it. We don't really speak anymore. But it was, for me, there's a real sort of understanding around the sort of the conditions and the commitment to the surfing that I was doing. It was often freezing cold. You get that the winds had changed, the sands had shifted. It's all different. But for me, it's what I loved and what my world was really. I went to university in Bristol, did marine biology or biological sciences and marine focus, and again I sort of really followed my passions, and it was then that I sort of really kind of fell in love more with the sea, but more from a sort of scientific point of view. And the sort of surfing that I was doing, you could end up surfing a place like this, like nowhere else in the world, in front of like 12th century castles up in Scotland, a few guys out, and the real commitment needed to kind of go there and be there on the spot at the time was something that really kind of tuned into me. Similarly to Outer Hebrides, this is us on the trip. quite a long time ago now, but we went up there, we stayed in a tent, that's frost on the ground, the wetsuits are pretty frozen, but again, we travelled the length of the country to get there and had probably 4 or 5 days of uncrowded waves. And that was the sort of surfing that I knew and the world I knew. Anyway, I left Bristol Uni and ended up going to London, ended up doing a chart surveying job in London, and it was at that time I sort of really realised that I wanted to bring something together around my passions, and that was a love of surfing, cold water surfing, a love of the sea and the importance of my playground, and also making product in the right sort of way back then, and probably to a certain extent now. You pick up the first sort of 8 or 9 pages of Surf magazine, and it's bikinis and board shorts. And for me, that was sort of product that wasn't really relevant to the life I was leading. In terms of the product, how it's made, what it's made from, where it was made. And so I started Finisterre to really address these needs. And as Lucy said, it was on our first website, it says a commitment to product, environment and people. And these have been our kind of guiding principles for the last 15 years. And it's been, we've had to sort of really commit to those, but something I'm really proud of with the team here that that's what we stand for. So that's, I suppose, the ideology of the brand and my passions and how you kind of wrap those up in a business. Finisterre is an old shipping forecast area. Anybody listen to shipping forecast here? Raise your hands. Yeah, a few nods. Yeah, it's always good to see. It's a kind of it's a British thing that I love, and I think the best description I heard was for seafarers, daydreamers, and insomniacs alike. It's basically people listen to it, have never been in the sea in their life, but it's a real romance to it. But it is ultimately there to save lives at sea. And so I think the Finisterre, the brand, I sort of draw quite a lot of parallels to that in terms of there's a romance to the brand, but in terms of innovation around sustainability and all the stuff we are doing is very real. So then move up to Real Kitty, which is our unit up there, Unit 6 there. Gather a team together, and you see Dave and Debs there. They're around today. Say hi to them if you see them. And we started to put a range together, and it was like making it up as you go along, working it out as you go along, a lot of blind naivety, optimism, that sort of thing, but a real belief in that we were here to affect change and make a difference and do something we really kind of believed in. And it was, some really tough times, because back then the kind of watermark on the reason why you guys are here was pretty low, actually. People weren't really aware of it. So buying recycled fabrics, getting merino wool, that sort of thing, people didn't get it. So we've had to kind of really fight our corner. But again, I think our founding commitments and sticking to our guns is something we've always sort of tried to do, and has sort of led us to the path we are now. And in terms of, so I've just got some examples now of how you go from a brand ideology, the thinking behind it, into actually making a real product, because that's ultimately, that's the most important thing. Getting our product out to our communities, our consumers, and letting them know about all the good stuff that we do. And the Beaumont product, and Leslie's over there. Lucy talked about her. Please go and say hello to Leslie. She's one of the proudest things around this business that I know. In 2008, we won the Observer Ethical Business Award, which is a massive deal for us, because we've been sort of fighting our corner in the dark, winters down here, the rain's coming, it's lashing on the roof, that sort of thing. And we decided to bring as much of our wool production back to the UK as we possibly could. And we're trying to find a fine fibre sheep, because the wool that your granny gives you in that woolen jumper for Christmas that you put on and you take it off straight away because it's so itchy, is actually quite a coarse wool. It's using carpets, that sort of thing. But we're trying to find a fine fibre wool, and that means that the micron has got to be under 18.5 or 19 microns, so fine fibre wool. And so we came across Leslie, who's based on a beautiful farm on the edge of Exmoor, and she's a rare breed specialist, and had collected a very small amount of British Beaumont back to her farm in Exmoor. And the reason why it's such a great story on a number of levels is that it's really where the brand really came together in terms of product, environment and people. In terms of the people, we have a relationship with Leslie. We couldn't do it without her, and she couldn't do it without us. So it's a real synergy there. We had to commit. We didn't make a Beaumont product for 6 years. So there weren't enough sheep to start with, so we sheared and stored the wool for 6 years. We finally made a product, a Beaumont jumper, 6 years later. And it's a great environmental story because through the product team at Finisterre, we resurrected a British supply chain. And so there's a sustainability message there. So a really good example of where we didn't have those kind of guiding principles. These opportunities wouldn't have come up. And one of my proudest days was when we took the sheep to Savile Row and for the campaign for Wool sort of Awareness Day, and they put the sheep on Savile Row and they put turf down, and I got my John Deere boiler suit on and was chatting farming to all these sort of surprised commuters going, what have you done to my street? It's got sheep and grass all over it. But go and have a word with Leslie and see the sheep, and she'll talk to you about how far she's come. And so another good example of how you bring, how do you get like a brand, your ideology into some really great product and story. Nylon is a dirty product to make, dirty product to break down, and it's not not good for the environment at all. So we've been looking for a solution to nylon, which is in terms of a fabric in our swimwear and our board shorts, and we came across a great company called Econil in Slovenia, and they repurposed nylon from discarded fishing nets and discarded office carpet waste, and repurposed it into long chain nylon that we can use in our fishing nets, in our bikinis. And you can see we've got the kind of graphic of the fishing net there in the bikinis. So it's quite a good example of where you can really bring the story to life in the product. And again, have a look in the store. You can see that going on in the relationship we build on further. And the last example I just wanted to quickly touch on was something that's very close to my heart, is the moving towards the world's first recyclable wetsuit. The surf industry, wetsuits, we use a lot of wetsuits. In the surf industry alone in the UK, there's 500,000 surfers buying 1 or 2 suits every 18 months or so. A suit lasts about 18 months. And there's no known sort of disposal or closed loop kind of solution in terms of what to do with a wetsuit at the end of its life. I think the estimate sort of back of an envelope type thing is 380 tonnes of neoprene in landfill a year, and that's 30 double-decker buses, which British theme people love that comparison. And it's a really good example, basically, where we've identified a problem. As a brand, we're innovative and have an outlook on sustainability, but it's a very complex material, neoprene, and so we linked up with Exeter University, where they have a centre for material engineering. And we have now Jenny, who's a full-time wetsuit recycler for Finisterre, is mentored by a professor at Exeter. So we've got some really heavyweight scientific backing behind the scheme. And the exciting thing is, from Finisterre's point of view, we ultimately don't know where it's going to go. We know there's a problem. We have an outlook as a business to do something about it. And by bringing science and business together, it really is at the cutting edge. And hopefully we are working towards making wetsuits from wetsuits. And then finally, in terms of the future for Finisterre, who's heard of B Corps here? It's always good to know that. It's about half the room. It's getting more of the room every time I ask that question, which is great. B Corps is a big movement in the States. It's getting bigger in the UK, and it's really using business for force for good. And to become B Corps certified, you have to go through quite a rigorous selection and certification process. Covers all areas of your business, operations, product, culture, governance, suppliers, all that sort of thing. You get a score, and you get above a certain score, become B Corps certified. And for us in our 15th year, I think it was really important. We've always done what we said we do, but for us to have this kind of accreditation that was a third-party stamp on what we're doing, and a real kind of commitment to, I think, the future, actually. It's a sort of affirmation of the last 15 years. We're giving some really exciting things to work on and ultimately get better at for the future. Yeah, have a look around. Welcome to Will Kitty. That's Finisterre's story. That's our story. That's so very excited to have you all here, to be really working, at the cutting edge of affecting change against plastic pollution. And again, make the most of the people that are here today, and network, because the collaborative effect is really what's gonna make the difference. So I shall see you all later on. Thanks a lot for your time. Yeah.